the meeting kicked off. And Renina, I'm going to toss it over to you to get us going.
All right, awesome. Hello, everybody. I'm Renina McCaskill, and my co-host is Bobby Mann. We're actually weekly community conversation every Monday, so I hope you guys are going to enjoy this. We have a good setup. I'm going to shoot off with the question of the day. Does your organization have policies developed to manage emergencies such as a pandemic, emergency, extreme weather, and or fire?
Thanks, Renina. This is such a fitting question as we sort of talk about this next iteration of animal welfare, collaboration. We talk about things that we need to do to be more successful. Christina Kim and her cohort of speakers today are really going to dive into what that's all about. So Renina, let's maybe see if, who do we want to pick on in the chat? Let's see. John Reese, it says yes on all. We'd love to hear from you. How long have you all been really practicing these things, and what do you do to keep them up to date? Sorry, no audio today. It is all good, my friend. How about Becca? Becca, can we pick on you?
Hi there. Yeah, we do, and we have developed through the years, every single one. Last year, we hired an emergency response and disaster manager, and he is the one that now every time there's a situation happening, he is the one pulling the trigger and making everything work. And we keep updated by reviewing every year when we go through a hurricane season or something else. We review what we've done and we look for ways to improve what we have done, what worked well and what didn't.
Awesome, Becca. Becca, would you tell folks where you're from and what you do for your organization?
Yeah, I'm with Charleston Animal Society. I run the No Kill South Carolina initiative. And what we do, we work with other shelters outside Charleston Animal Society, helping them improve the quality of care and life-saving of the animals, especially with the county shelters, the ones that are open admission where euthanasia is happening more often. So we have helped them through the past 5 years to improve all of that. And just to say, we were statewide, we had euthanasia for dogs at 19%, and for cats at 45%. And last year, in the end of last year, we had 8% for dogs and 14% for cats.
Wow, Becca,
it's working well.
You got that elevator pitch buttoned up. 10 out of 10 on that one. I think the one thing that I want to mention from what you said really was the review of them, right? I think a lot of us take a little bit of time to start putting them together, but lives in animal welfare get so busy that we forget to look at them, update them for standard and best practices. So something always to keep in mind. Keep those answers coming in the chat. We do have a fast moving agenda today because of our amazing presenters. So I'm actually going to toss it over to my big sister, Sharon Fletcher, who has an awesome update from Maddie's Fund and the Shelter Pet Project.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here. I'm representing Mary. She was going to talk about this along with her Monday motivation. Unfortunately, she got called away, so I'm pitch hitting. I wanted to let you know, you've heard me, some of you over the years, over and over again, talking about the Shelter Pet Project is evolving, and it has evolved. It launched last Wednesday on October 12th. It is now called the Pets and People Together campaign. Yes, super excited. Wanted to share it with all of you and just let you know about it so you're aware. It was launched nationally and by the Ag Council, and it's in collaboration with Maddie's Fund is a sponsor along with HSUS, the Humane Society of the United States. And we've been working on this campaign for a bit, did a lot of research with community members, and it was quantitative and qualitative, just wanted to share that with everyone. One thing I thought was it's not going to be surprising to everyone, 97% of pet parents consider their pets family members. So that's what this premise was based on. And that what we heard in the research was that people are willing to help their neighbor, friend, or family member that will help them keep that family member or pet with them in their home. So we launched these some stories. Are going to share you with one in a moment. I'm going to throw it to Allison. But the first 4 stories, so as you can imagine, trying to create these stories and then getting them done. The first ones that we started on there were 4. One on return to home pet reunification, what you can do when you find a lost pet or when you lose a pet, how you can help your neighbor, friend, or family with temporary foster care, say someone's having a medical condition, or maybe short-term deployment into the military. Let's see, the other 2 were, consider donating to help a friend or neighbor with their veterinary care. And the last one is about consider donating to a food pantry, pet food, so that you're, anyone is a paycheck or a lost job away from needing help. So we've created 3 PSAs. We're going to share one with you in a moment. Go ahead, Allison.
¿Qué color? Perfecto, amigo.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Thank you.
Bye, John. Thank you.
So thank you. We'd love to hear what you think. This is just one. So Allison has put in the URL. All the PSAs right now are on the website, petsandpeopletogether.org. And really the bottom line is we hope this campaign will help inspire and energize community members across the nation to take actions that they can, no matter how small or large, to help their friends, neighbors, and family members, which in turn, you're probably thinking, what does this mean for us? Hopefully will help the shelter and foster-based organizations, and you can then position yourselves as your resource within your community. Feel free to use these PSAs. If you have programs related to them, that cat, I'll tell you, he is a bona fide actor. He has been in West Side Story that just launched. He's also was in TikTok Boom with Andrew Garfield and many others. He has a twin brother. The twin brother is sitting on the table, that little piece. But Jerry, his name is Jerry, and the brother's name is Tom. Jerry he was trained. He loved touching that yarn every time. So just a little trivia. Anyway, there's the URL has resources for what people can do, and we're hoping community members across the country will find out, understand what they can do, and then hopefully tie into the programs that you have. So feel free to send me an email or send it to Maxine is on the call, I saw, or Vicki Stevens at HSUS, and we'll put our emails in.
Shout out to Maddie's and HSUS and the Shelter Pet Project. Folks, this is, okay, there's a couple things. One, I think people always ask, what is the benefit of having a campaign like the Shelter Pet Project? We in animal welfare talk about how we are so insular in the conversations that we have, whether it's shelter people talking to shelter people or us really only getting our message out to our shelter platforms, which typically are our social media platforms, which typically have a lot of animal lovers. Well, we are going through a new iteration of change management and culture change when it's related to our work, right? We just went through this big change, how life-saving programs are so important and adoption is so important. And it took us years, if not decades, to really change our country and our world vision of what we do as animal welfare. And now we're going through this new iteration, which is about keeping people and pets together. And so although we are doing our best ourselves to get this message out, there's nothing like community members seeing this on a billboard, on a TV ad, and seeing it multiple times. in lenses that are related to them. And the last thing I will mention about this that I want to say is thank you so much to the producers of this for having a DEI lens on this work as well. We were able to show that there was a senior BIPOC woman who loved her pet, and that it was an indoor pet that was having a beautiful sweater built. And then you also have a BIPOC person who was activating and elevating the Animal Welfare Society by investing into donating to the cause. So just beautiful all around. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Make sure that you watch the other ads on the website. And before we get into our presentation, I'm going to pause now and open it up for other national updates.
If possible, I'd love to share about one of our programs that we're doing in LA in case it's suitable for anyone.
Of course.
So my name's Megan and I'm from Dogs Trust USA, and one of the projects we do is providing free staff training for staff and volunteers in rescue and shelters. And we're currently working in New York and LA, and in LA next month we're holding a 2-day seminar, and it's for free, but we need people to book tickets on Eventbrite, so I'll post the link in case that's suitable. And it's for about 10 a.m. EST until 4 p.m. both days, and we're covering topics such as body language, vet handling, enrichment, and generally how dogs learn, and training that's applicable for that kennel environment. And we're also holding on the 14th of November a foster session, which will be available for people to attend in person. So both the staff version and foster will be held at Annenberg Pet Space, and all the details for addresses are on the leaflets that I'll add to the chat. And the foster version is also going to be streamed online, so people can join on Zoom. So do share the leaflets with any of your staff or volunteers that might be suitable for. And the 2 staff days are November 14th and the November 15th. So I'll pop our email for any questions as well in the chat. But yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Bob, I know you're going to come with one of your really dope Beagle updates. We're really tight on time, so if you want to keep it to 20 seconds, we'd love to hear about them very quickly.
Not a Beagle update. I don't know how many of you work with PetSmart, and they're kicking off their stuffed animal campaign. When you check out, you buy a stuffed animal and the proceeds go to the PetSmart charities. We've been partnering with PetSmart here in the area for a number of years. And this year, we're taking those stuffed animals and we're using them to secure donations for not only pet food, but for people food. We partnered with the county, and so the donation places are now the police stations and the fire stations. So when they come in and they donate to either the pet or people food, the police officers and or the fire people in the fire department give them these stuffed animals as a thank you, really building a bridge between the public service, the pets, and the people in need. So, and the officers are going to have some of these PetSmart stuffed animals in their cars. So when they run into a situation with a young child or something like that, they can kind of give them one of the PetSmart stuffed animals for the holidays. So if you're partners with PetSmart in your particular neighborhood, I encourage you to kind of think about leveraging what they're doing and helping the rest of the community. That went longer than you wanted it to, but I'm sorry, I'm done.
All good, Bob. That was beautiful. What a great idea. Always so many innovative ideas coming from you, Bob. So thank you. If folks have other national updates, I'd love for you to use the chat. We are running a little bit behind on our timing. And the other thing that I'm going to ask is, I know we typically try to get out by 10 before the hour, but this might go just a few minutes long. So just wanted to ask for forgiveness for that. And Renina, I'm going to go over to you to kick off our presentation.
All right, to save time, we're going to just jump right into it. Allow me to introduce Kristen Kim, founder and board member of the My Dog Is My Home.
Great, thank you. May I share my screen? All right, great. Okay. Did that go over well? Can everyone see that?
Perfect.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to Maddie's Fund and the entire community for inviting us to give this talk. Today, myself and two of my friends and former colleagues in New York City government will be talking with you about interdisciplinary collaboration for animals in emergency management. This is a topic that I'm sure has been on many people's minds in the wake of Hurricane Ian, and as we all hope for a quieter end to this year's hurricane season. New York City is the largest city in the United States, and the city government employs the biggest municipal workforce in the country. It's a bit of a beast in and of itself, and it administers a complex web of public services unmatched in size and scale. In this distinct environment, unique government entities implement sweeping, first-of-its-kind public policy for animals and their caregivers. Often, such policies are developed to manage emergencies such as the COVID-19 pandemic, extreme weather, and fire and large-scale property destruction and loss. This talk will review examples of New York City emergency management responses for people and their companion animals, the mobilization of public-private partnerships, and the interdisciplinary coordination necessary to implement human-animal welfare policies, and how strengthening other parts of the social service system intersects with emergency management for people and animals. The three of us today represent various parts of New York City's government, past and present, and we hope to leave you with some interesting case studies and examples of how animals in emergency management is approached in New York City. My name is Christine Kim, and I'm the founder and a board member of My Dog is My Home. My Dog is My Home is a national, mostly volunteer-run organization that focuses on increasing access to shelter and housing for people experiencing homelessness and their companion animals. As my day job, I'm the partnerships consultant for New Women New Yorkers, a nonprofit that provides workforce development for immigrant women in New York City. And previously, I was the director of the New York City Mayor's Office of Animal Welfare under Mayor Bill de Blasio. Today's presentation is a really exciting topic for me to cover because for the first time in a while, I represent government from the electorate side, not the administration side. So I'm just here as an advocate, right? Also, emergency shelter, animals, and immigration, which are my three areas of professional practice, all converge in this topic of New York City emergency management, and it all feels especially relevant right now, which we will discuss in a few moments. But I'm just one of three presenters today, and now that you know a little bit about me, I'll pass things on to my good friends Alex and Andy for brief introductions, starting with Alex.
Thank you, Christine. And yes, thank you to Maddie's for having us. Excited to be here. And yeah, okay. I was just going to ask you, Christine, if I could advance the slides, or you did, but you're on it, so thank you. So yeah, as Christine said, I'm with the Mayor's Office of Animal Welfare, which I was a little nervous about filling, quite frankly, because I knew Christine had done such a great job in this role as director of such a unique office. And I've been here since July. Previously, I was at Animal Care Centers of NYC, and one of the great things about this current job is that I still get to work with all my former colleagues at ACC, and I was there for 10 years. So I feel like I got a really good sense of the variety of animal issues that go on in a city such as New York. About the office, you know, it's only a few years old. Christine was the first director, as many of you may know, and she did an amazing job. I'm just going to say it. Sorry, I'm going to make you blush, Christine, but she did a really great job setting up this foundation for this brand new office, first of its kind. It is a mayoral office within the community affairs unit here at the mayor's office. So I'm working among colleagues who are out across the 5 boroughs all the time, specializing in, you know, different, connecting with different communities, connecting with the boroughs. But the office is in a position now where we can, you know, it's again still new, so I'm still developing where do I want to take it, but I do want to build on what Christine had done. And I'll have a little bit more to say about the office further on, so I will just leave it at that and pass it on to Andy.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Maddie's Fund, for having us. Thank you, Christine, for reaching out to Alex and myself. I know time is short, so I'm going to keep the intro very, very short. I've been with New York City Emergency Management for 6 years. I work in the Human Services Unit. Part of what I do is chairing the Animal Planning Task Force, which is what I'm largely going to be speaking about for a couple of minutes. Also chair New York City's Access and Functional Needs Work Group, which is a work group of organizations that provide services to the disability community. I also, on the operations side, respond out to incidents as a liaison between what's happening on the street and our leadership at the agency and City Hall, giving them as much situational awareness at an incident as possible. Before I joined New York City Emergency Management, I was a firefighter in the Philadelphia area, and I thought firefighting was the greatest job in the world. Working in emergency management in New York City is the greatest job in the world because I get to work with people like Christine, Alex, and all of these other animal welfare organizations that I'm going to talk about. The Animal Planning Task Force, or APTF, is a working group, a consortium of animal welfare organizations and a few city and state agencies, all united around a common mission of providing support to companion animals, service animals, and their families. One of the questions I often get is, with your job, particularly in New York City, how do you have the time, how do you have the bandwidth to plan for people and their pets? And I think it was Sharon earlier said that pets are considered family members. That's why we do it. Because if we don't include animals, pets, we're not providing all the help we can provide to the citizens of New York. They are members of the family, and that's why we have these initiatives. That's pretty much it by way of presentation. So Christine, I'll turn it back to you or whomever.
Great, thank you, Andy. So before moving on with my portion of the presentation, I just want to repeat that I no longer work for the New York City Mayor's office, and I want to draw a clear and distinct line between myself and Alex and Andy. All opinions stated during this presentation by me are my own and do not reflect that of the current administration. That being said, New York City has a known affordability problem, and that's pretty public information. You don't really need to be an insider to know that. This summer, New York One reported that the average rental price for a one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan was $4,278. The average rental price for apartments in Manhattan in general just exceeded $5,000 for the first time ever. The average rental price in Brooklyn for a one-bedroom is over $3,000, and again, that's the highest in history. Same trend in Queens, with the median and average rental prices being the highest in history, around $3,000. And in our two boroughs known for being more affordable, that being the Bronx and Staten Island, the Bronx has had a 10% rise in average rents for a one bedroom, bringing it to a little over $2,000. And Staten Island, this is the one and only place where the cost of a one bedroom apartment has remained relatively stable throughout the years. So the average cost of a one bedroom is currently, and has been for many years, $1,500. If you're a working person working a minimum wage job full time, you cannot afford yourself in New York City, even in Staten Island. Rent is supposed to be 30% of your income. If $1,500 was 30% of someone's income, that person would be making $60,000 a year, or roughly $28.84 an hour. Minimum wage in New York is $15 an hour. And even that was a fairly recent development that came with a big de Blasio era push to the state legislature. It's true that there are higher wages these days due to the labor shortage, but the raise in wages for what used to be minimum wage jobs is now, around $17, $18 an hour, $28. With rising rents, the expiration of COVID safety net policies like the eviction moratorium, and unemployment that's twice the national average, it's no wonder that homelessness is on the rise. I don't have a study to reference for this statement I'm about to make, but I don't think it's a leap to say that our animal shelters are impacted by this as well. So this is all data that was reported this summer, even prior to the pandemic. On one, what one might consider a good day, or at least an average day in New York City, our homelessness situation was nothing to be proud of. We consistently rank either 1 or 2 in the number of people experiencing homelessness in the annual National Homelessness Census. And if we have ranked number 2 in the past, we were second only to Los Angeles. Coalition for the Homeless reported that over the course of city fiscal year 2021, over 100,000 people, 100,000 different homeless adults and children slept in the New York City Department of Homeless Services shelter system. And I'd just like to highlight that these are only the people experiencing homelessness who actually enter the homeless shelter system. There are many other people who are experiencing homelessness but don't sleep in a shelter. They're couch surfing, sleeping night to night in a low-income hotel. Someone's doing them a favor, or they're out there sleeping in the streets or in their cars. That number is the population of a small city in and of itself.
Hey, Christine, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I think the audio might be coming in a bit choppy. Would you mind trying turning your camera off to see if that might help with the bandwidth issue?
Yes.
It's just what you're saying is so important. I don't want anybody to miss a word.
Hopefully that helps.
Much better.
Thank so you. Good. Okay, good. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so let's see here. All right, so right, this number is obviously huge. New York City's homeless services system and the public servants that work within it are facing a huge task of sheltering a small city within New York City, as well as really fierce NIMBYism, or not in my backyard, when shelters are planned to open in various communities across the city to meet the need. So now add to this baseline task the additional challenge of absorbing almost 20,000 asylum seekers and migrants that have been bused to New York, or thousands of people who have been flooded out of their homes because of a hurricane, or 100 families who have been displaced due to a massive fire that destroyed an apartment complex. This slide is titled "Strengthening the Homeless Services System equals Strengthening Emergency Management," because very often the homeless services emergency shelter system ends up absorbing populations that are left houseless due to a variety of emergencies and disasters, which initially might not be managed by homeless services, or they're situations that you wouldn't traditionally think of homeless services as playing a role in. If we can strengthen the homeless services system, which of course includes making it a system that accepts companion animals, then we strengthen emergency management overall. And strengthening the homeless services system doesn't necessarily even mean making the emergency shelter system bigger. If we can shrink the emergency shelter system by building and maintaining more affordable pet-inclusive housing, that's even better. Efforts like this take significant interdisciplinary collaboration, to the point where sometimes it doesn't really even feel like collaboration, and it feels more like interdisciplinary pushing and pulling. And I can say this because I'm no longer in government, right? I don't want to make this sound more romantic than it actually is. Everything is really difficult. And somebody with coordinating power needs to make a case for animals and people with animals against other competing priorities, and have the authority to bring government agencies across disciplines to the table. So with that, I will hand things over to my good friend, Alex Silver, the current director of the New York City Mayor's Office of Animal Welfare, to give some examples about what that actually looks like in practice. So go ahead, take it away, Alex.
Thank you, Christine. I love that lead up to it too, with that background information. I think that's pretty helpful. Yeah, so as Christine was saying, this is a big city with a lot of different agencies, a lot of different players, a lot of push-pull going on. I just wanted to start with a little background on, some of the players in New York, just to put some, details here in terms of what are we talking about when we're saying so many people are involved. Well, you have, of course, the health department, who would help would monitor the animal shelters. They oversee the animal shelters, as well as a lot of other animal related issues, licensing, permitting, illegal animals. You have the police department, who are doing cruelty here in New York. It used to be the ASPCA years ago. It's now, we have an animal cruelty investigation squad. The parks department is involved in a variety of animal issues. Here in New York, we have an initiative called Wildlife NYC, which is really to encourage New Yorkers to learn more about urban wildlife that naturally lives here, and to encourage coexistence efforts. Social services, the Department of Social Services here in New York includes the Department of Homeless Services, the Human Resources Administration, who of course are dealing with, as Christine was mentioning, with the shelter system, which right now, we have so many people in our shelter system. The Commission on Human Rights, I threw that on because when we're talking about service animals and emotional support animals, that's an agency that's getting involved. Mayor's Office to End Domestic and Gender-Based Violence. We all know on this call about concerns with domestic violence and people who have pets. So there's a lot of different entities in this large government that are all dealing with animal issues, either directly responsible for perhaps overseeing, or they just touch on it because people come through their departments who have pets who have special needs, and maybe the agency isn't built for that purpose of handling it, but they will touch on animal issues. So, with that in mind, as Christine said, I think it is very helpful to have an office that can bring everybody together, that can be a touch point. It's funny, as we were on the call, I just got an email from one agency asking for a contact about cruelty in another agency. It can be that simple, that's the easy thing. The bigger issues, of course, come when we're talking about addressing the underlying issues, which I'll get to in a second. But part of this role is really just making sure we can all coordinate, making sure that everyone has what they need. And then also, how can we strengthen that? How can we strengthen the responses of each agency? How can we either, maybe it's working together, collaborating to incur better solutions, or changing how things are done and looking at what we can improve. My next bullet point about external partnerships is not just about crises, but is also about day-to-day issues. So I just wanted to give a couple of examples of how, even with this government that has so many different players, you still need the community support. You still need to partner with nonprofits. I'm sure this is true of most locales. We can't do it all. And, I listed hoarding cases as an example because in some situations, the government might be set up to respond to approach one angle of how are we going to help this person, which is very important. That person might be hoarding cats, and maybe the government staff member who's responding does not have the background in animal welfare that would be helpful. So what we can do is maybe reach out, team up with somebody who does have a background in animal welfare, who could accompany the agency representative, and together they can speak and really have more credibility with this person who loves animals, who understands there's someone there who can speak to them about why it's best for the cats, not just for the human being. And then cooling centers is another example that I put here about external partnerships, because here in New York, we have a system set up where when it gets to a certain temperature, and Andy, I'm sure maybe you can speak more on this, but when it gets to a certain temperature, we do open up public spaces so people can cool off. And until very recently, there were not any cooling centers that were open to pets. And I have to say, it was Christine who got it done. I can't take credit for this. When she was here at the Office of Animal Welfare, she was able to get Petco on board. And now Petco stores are part of the cooling center network. And that's just an example where, again, this office really, it was helpful to kind of come in and bring together these different players, and also where the city needed the support and how we can all work together for the greater good. And then my last bullet point, about addressing the big picture, hoarding, cooling centers, those are specific cases. We were approached with an issue. We needed to find a solution. Who can we call? What can we do? What this office can also do, and having a point person is, and Christine mentioned this too when she was talking about, co-sheltering and pet inclusive housing, is this office can really kind of take a more holistic look, take a step back, look at the bigger picture and say, okay, not only in crises, not only in emergencies when we see people coming into the shelters, but, for a natural disaster or COVID or whatever is happening, evictions, whatever is happening, but even on just a day-to-day basis, what would help both people and pets. And co-sheltering, pet inclusive housing are two issues that are most definitely on my radar, because if we were able to expand those, we would be helping those day-to-day issues that people face, and also be, as Christine said, laying a foundation for a much stronger emergency response capability. So I think we're 100% on the same page on that. And with that, I will turn it over to Andy.
Thank you, Alex. As Alex and the others have mentioned, nobody can do it alone. New York City government is resource rich. And what you see at the top is the Animal Planning Task Force partnership list, although that is not complete. That's an old banner. ASPCA, Animal Care Centers, HSUS, Mayor's Alliance for New York City's Animals, New York City Veterinary Response Team, of course, Mayor's Office of Animal Welfare, organizations like Positive Tales. Beth, I know you are on this call, Best Friends Animal Society, the American Red Cross, and so many other animal welfare organizations, as I said before, united to provide support to companion animals and their families. What New York City Emergency Management does is we're not in charge of this. We basically coordinate this work group, and we give all of the partners a platform so they can speak to each other. And all of these partners, unfortunately, work with each other every single day because we are always planning for the everyday emergencies, the fires, the extreme cold, the extreme heat, flooding, yes, pandemics, utility disruptions, pretty much anything that could disrupt the lives of a large number of people in New York City. And these are things that unfortunately happen every day. Things that don't happen every day, like hurricanes, large coastal storms, those large-scale disasters are covered under a disaster animal response manual. Yes, there is a plan, there is a manual on how all of these organizations and city agencies can work together to make sure people's pets and service animals are included in the already existing emergency plans that the city holds. What we as a work group respond to, what the animal welfare partners respond to, are anything that creates an evacuation or a vacate. Like Alex mentioned, it could be multi-alarm fire, flooding, building collapses, natural gas explosions, cranes collapsing into high rises, pretty much anything that can impact a large number of people. And each one of these animal planning partners brings different skill sets to these responses. Some provide vet care, some provide supplies that support the people who are displaced with their animals. Where these people go with their animals, that can take a few different, it could look very, very differently. We open what is called a group of service centers. A service center is usually either a school or some kind of community center where people who are evacuated from their homes with or without their pets can come to and receive city services. They may need food stamps. They may need new identification. They may need legal services. We don't want these folks who are having the worst day of their lives going to all these different city agencies. We bring city agencies into a service center, and these folks, it's one-stop shopping for them, can go to agency, and that way the city makes sure that everybody is supported with the things that they need every single day. And that includes pets and the things that pets need. We always talk about people making go bags when they have to evacuate. Some people do, some people don't. We encourage people to make go bags for their pets. Some do, some don't. But if people come to an evacuation shelter or a service center with their pet, they will be supported. These are pet-friendly facilities. They will not be turned away. And even if they don't bring crates and leashes and food and whatever they need, those things will be provided by our great animal welfare partners. They are much more nimble, they're faster in response than the city is. The city is more like a cruise ship that takes a lot of time to move around. And these animal welfare organizations are speedboats. And they can get these supplies out to the shelters, out to the service centers very, very quickly. If it's an extended operation, then emergency management will come out with our stockpiled supplies. It may take a day or two, but that's why we depend upon our animal welfare partners every single day. So that covers vacates and evacuations. Alex covered beautifully the cooling centers. That has always been a sticking point up until last year. Why aren't cooling centers pet friendly if emergency shelters are pet friendly? There were a variety of reasons around that, but the cooling centers for the city typically are the city library system and community centers. And without the relationship that Christine and Alex and their team built and continue to nurture with Petco, we wouldn't have that pet-friendly solution that was desperately needed for years. So we're really glad that New Yorkers have a place to go. And the cooling centers don't open just for any hot day. There are certain triggers. If the heat index, the feels like temperature, is at least 95 degrees for 2 days or more, the cooling centers open up. Or if the heat index is 100 degrees for 1 day, the cooling centers will open up. And New York City is unique in a lot of different ways, but retention of heat, it's like no other city. It's really remarkable how hot the city gets and how hot the city stays. And it depends on the borough. The Bronx typically gets so much hotter than Brooklyn. And all of these solutions that we have in emergency management has to be custom made to the different communities, to the different demographics, to the different boroughs, because everybody is different. So that's really the planning and the responding part of what the task force does. Our partners do a fantastic job of public education. They go out to tabling events, their own events, or the events that emergency management hosts, and they educate the public on much of what we talked about so far, about how people can keep their pets safe, how to keep them out of the heat when it's very, very hot out there, about go bags, and what the city can do and the animal welfare organizations can do to support folks with their pets and their service animals. Moving back up to the COVID-19 response, yes, pandemics is something that the city plans for and has planned for. Thanks to our animal welfare organizations, we stood up a COVID-19 pet hotline for people who were feeling insecure. They were concerned about if they had to go to the hospital because of COVID and they didn't have a support system like friends and family to care for their pet. What were they going to do? Did they have to surrender it? We made sure that the ASPCA, Animal Care Centers, Humane Society, there was a hotline that people could call regarding food and any kind of support they needed, any questions they had around their insecurity around COVID-19. It was mentioned that, and I'm sure you've seen on the news, that New York City has been receiving busload after busload of asylum seekers from the southern border. I think since April, we're up to at least 20,000 individuals with no end in sight. And we are very fortunate to be offering very creative housing solutions to these families. And thanks to our animal welfare organizations, those that come up to New York City with their pets are going to be supported as well. These are pet-friendly facilities, whether it's a hotel or any other facility that is stood up. We have food, crates, enrichment, vet care if people need it at these locations. So these folks are supported and their pets are supported as well. And as I said before, New York City Emergency Management could not do all of this, regardless of how rich we are with resources. We consider our animal welfare partners among the most important resources that we have, because we work with them effectively every day. And more importantly, they work with each other seamlessly every single day. And we're very, very grateful for that. And we're glad that New York City is as pet friendly as it has been and will always be. And that pretty much covers Animal Planning Task Force. Christine?
Yes, thank you so much, Andy and Alex, for covering all that good content. I do just want to add one thing in that, although a lot of the partners, the ASPCA's, Humane Societies, Positive Tales, and the animal care centers, they do a lot of the direct response work, but the city offers an incredible platform. And so, for example, the city has the ability to send out text messages, right, in emergency situations. And then the city also runs the 311 number where any New Yorker, or even non-New Yorker really, can call 311 and get somebody on the phone and get information about various resources. And so when the city is able to put out a message through either one of those platforms about planning for your pet or what resources are available for you and your pet in an emergency, it just reaches so many more people than if one of these animal partners was to do it on their own. So just wanted to bring that up as well. Okay, so, oh, sorry, go ahead, Bobby.
Oh, no, you're good, Christine. Thank you so much. I think, Renina, we're going to also toss it over to you and Christine to get going with some questions. I do want to make a very quick call in, though, related to a bit of unnecessary cultural appropriation that I did earlier. I used the term chat ninja earlier, and although whatever my context was about it, that can be very disrespectful to certain cultures or folks. So if anybody on this call was offended by that, I just wanted to personally apologize. And then Renina, I want to toss it over to you.
Thank you. One of the questions in the chat is, what is the role of local veterinarians in your emergency response plans?
Yeah, that's a really important question. Thanks for asking that. Our volunteer veterinarians come from a few different places. Positive Tales can provide them. I mentioned the veterinary emergency response team. Their role is twofold. The New York City VERT, emergency response team, they will not only come out to emergency shelters where people are co-located with their pets and service animals and provide care, but they're also responsible for providing care for working animals. NYPD and FDNY use canines daily. If there is a large-scale disaster, these canines are going to be used every day, and the veterinarians are there to support the working animals as well. So it's really people and their pets and the working animals. That's a great question. Thank you for it.
Thank you, Edward, for that actual question. Anybody else have any more other questions?
Yeah, I do. I've been doing a lot of work with the New York State Animal Protection Federation. Libby Post is the executive director. They have been doing some significant work legislatively. They've secured somewhere to the order of $20 or $25 million from the state legislators, state budget, I should say, for all sorts of initiatives, many of which you mentioned in this presentation. To the point where we're trying to establish a Virginia version of the Animal Protection Federation. I'm just curious if, I know, Alex, I messaged you and you said you knew of Libby, but you hadn't touched base with her. I'd encourage you to.
I'm sorry, just to clarify. No, I know Libby. I just worked with her more when I was at, I knew it from ACC, but I have not yet in this current role. But I know the Federation, yeah.
Yeah, if I don't know if politically and personality wise, I don't know about all of that, but I mean, functionally, they are doing the laundry list of legislative wins are significant, and they grow every year. So to the point where, like I said, we're trying to do a similar version of that organization here in Virginia.
Yeah, Bob, Libby has been part of the Animal Planning Task Force for quite some time. So she is another valuable resource. And yeah, good. As you said, she and her organization do so much. And we're glad to have her part of the working group.
Glad to hear that. Thank you.
Sure.
Andy, I see there's also a question about the Red Cross, if they're part of the task force. So if you want to take that. Yeah.
Yeah, the Greater New York American Red Cross is an integral part of the task force. Because obviously they're responding out to fires and lots of other emergencies, providing housing in hotels for people. And without partnering with them, we would not be doing the whole job. So yes, they're a very, very important part of the task force. We work with them every day. And they have also a burgeoning, a growing companion animal support program as well. So we're glad to see that catching on with other organizations.
Got another question here. How do you let community members know that these facilities are pet friendly? Many people won't go to facilities or evacuate because they have a pet and may have been turned away previously.
Yeah, more and more people are learning that these facilities are pet friendly, but you're right. Not everybody knows. People are still surprised. And we never want people to make that horrible decision of staying home with their pet where it's unsafe, where they can go somewhere that is safer with their pet. So New York City Emergency Management does a tremendous amount of community outreach, as well as public messaging at time of an emergency. And we always make sure that people know that these facilities are pet friendly and they should not be hesitant to come to these because they can't bring their pets. So at time of, whether we're messaging—
Oh, Andy, you're breaking up. Maybe shut your camera off.
Okay.
Anybody else get that?
I hope this is better. Whether we're messaging through social media at time of an incident or with community outreach, we constantly let the public know that these facilities are pet friendly.
Yeah, and Christine, I think, mentioned the text messaging capability of the city, which is
I don't know.
Notify NYC. And Andy, I feel like I did get some text this summer about, I don't want to misreport, but I'm pretty sure we did see some cooling centers and maybe there was mention of pet friendly being among that. And that text messaging service has a pretty far reach. But please correct me if I'm wrong on that. I know I definitely saw it on Twitter, and there's a map on the cooling centers that New Yorkers can access when they're activated. You can see it's very clearly demarcated pet friendly.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
People will receive messages through text. There's something called Nixle messaging, which is something, I think that's text also, but it's incident specific. And whatever it is that we're putting out there for the public, we are always mentioning that facilities are pet friendly. The Cooling Center Finder, which is online, as you said, Alex, does clearly point out which facilities are pet friendly, but the Finder is not always accessible. It's not always open 24/7. It's only in anticipation of turning on that cooling center program. But great question about community outreach. We make a concerted effort to make sure people know that we want people to bring their pets.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy. I want to thank our wonderful speakers, Christine, Alex, and Andrew, for today's presentation and starting the ball rolling with myself, and I hope others, with planning and managing emergencies. Trying to get the collab together is amazing, and I can't wait to have more people on board with that. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Yeah, great seeing everybody. Bye.